Welcome to the CFA Connections how-to tutorial on table settings. In this tutorial, we are reviewing standard place settings for onboard business jets, featuring flatware placements for single, double, and conference table settings, salt and pepper placement, as well as napkin and beverage placements. Placement settings may seem obvious for many of you. However, you'd be surprised how many cabin attendants incorrectly set a table, even a single placement. The most common errors are the flatware location, which we'll be focusing on. Let's get started. The majority of business jets have the following standard stock on board: placemats, napkins, salt and pepper shakers or grinders, salad forks, dinner knives, tea or coffee spoons, dinner or soup spoons. And some aircraft may also have steak and bread and butter knives. Many of us cabin crew often have to deviate from the etiquette rules due to business jet cabin restraints. From the size of the tables and the minimal surface area to the limited number of flatware and serving pieces we have on board, and the lack of full access to serve our clients from both sides, as we only can approach them from one side on most business jets. Now, not all of you may agree with these recommended standards, and that's okay, as these are somewhat subjective. However, I have been teaching in-flight service and etiquette for over 20 years and have implemented service standards for many flight departments. Therefore, I humbly know what realistically works and what doesn't work on board. And although these techniques may not necessarily follow what etiquette rules state, please note that these rules were written without business jets in mind. Over the years, formal etiquette standards have actually relaxed a bit to focus more on the overall dining experience versus the stuffy formality of it all. That being said, the fork should still be on the left and the knife and spoon still on the right of all place settings. The rest, well, we'll see. The key to establishing in-flight standards is consistency. Salt and pepper placement. If you have opaque salt and pepper shakers with no S or P identifiers, how do you know which is which? Do you just start shaking them in your hand to find out? Or can you tell by the number of holes on the top of a shaker? This begs the question, which shaker top has the most holes, salt or pepper? And does it really matter? Apparently, there is an actual salt and pepper rule. To identify the salt and pepper shakers, it all has to do with the number and size of holes and your level of commitment to insanity. But the number of holes in the shakers varies by culture, health habits, and taste. Example, in the United States, excessive salt use is considered unhealthy, so the salt shaker is the one with the fewer holes. But in many other parts of the world, it's the other way around. So once again, there's another rule which is subjective, so take this information with a grain of salt. Sorry. We feel the real answer is to use whichever shaker gives you the result you want. It may also depend on the kind of salt and pepper you are using. Therefore, this is why the placement on the table is what really matters. We say avoid the stress and use clear salt and pepper grinders, no guessing, no cultural confusion. Placement. As a rule, quote unquote, salt is placed to the right of the pepper. And we have the saying, white on right. Why? There are actually many theories as to why this is the standard. However, it actually comes down to two basic things. Salt is used more than pepper. All table setting standards are right-handed biased. Therefore, since salt is more popular, it gets the priority position. Using this nesting table as an example, so the client's facing the table here, so we're going to place the placemat, and now using the graphic, the client's facing this direction, so the salt and pepper shakers can be placed top center, white on right is the salt, and it can be on or off the placemat, or it also can be in the upper left-hand quarter of the place setting. Either one is completely appropriate. And here's some video examples. Now a double place setting, so two clients are facing each other on a nesting table. So once you've set the placemats, the salt and pepper shakers cannot go in the same position as a single place setting because the white on right only applies to one person. Therefore, they should be on the sidewall side, center of the setting, and these can be on the table, on the placemats, or on the upper sidewall depending on the configuration. You just don't want them on the inboard side of the table because they can easily be knocked off onto the floor. With conference tables, if you only have one set of salt and pepper shakers, then set them in the center facing inboard, white on right. If you have two sets, then you want to place them center in between each groups of settings shown here. This is the best location because majority of conference tables, once unfolded, they have the drink cup holders, so the salt and pepper shakers, you want to avoid them falling into those holes. First, basic standard flatware placement. For those with limited service standards training or just have a difficult time remembering which side the utensils are placed, here's a little trick I've shared for years. The word left has 4 letters, so does the word fork. Therefore, forks are placed on the left side of the place setting. The word right has 5 letters, and both knife and spoon also have 5 letters, so these are placed on the right side of the place setting. Easy as that. When placing knives in the place setting, the blade always points in towards the center of the place setting. When setting the table, always think about the utensil they're going to use first is on the outside, on the appropriate side. So with the forks, the salad fork is used first, so that would be on the outer side of the place setting. On the right hand side, the soup spoon would be used first, so that's going to be on the outermost side of the place setting on the right, and so on. And the following are standard table setting placements. Be very conscientious of the space that's remaining between the utensils in the center portion of the place setting, so there's plenty of space for the china to be served. Dinner plates, charger, what have you. If it's too tight, you may not have enough room, so you're going to have to then adjust the silverware in order to accommodate the plate. This is why it's best to place the flatware as far out to the place setting as possible to leave plenty of space for the plates and for your hand movements to place them. So if you're setting both a salad knife and a dinner knife, the dinner knife is what's the most inner setting placement. Again, both blades facing the center. If you're placing a soup spoon, then it's going to be on the outer side, so the furthest right in your place setting. If you're using a lot of utensils, you can do this really creative space-saving technique, which will open up the space in between to allow enough room for the plates, and this is completely appropriate etiquette-wise. If using a steak knife, it goes furthest into the setting, blade pointing in, because this will be used in the main course. On board, the placement of the bread and butter plate will vary based on size of the table and how much working space there really is. The bread and butter plate should be set on the left side of the setting. The upper left corner usually works best in this type of environment. However, the reality is, make it work, and whatever that is, be consistent. With the bread and butter knife placement, same rule applies with the blade pointing in, and you use it just like a road, so you go up to top center and over to the left. It can be placed horizontally, either in the center of the plate, the top of the plate, lower part of the plate, or it can also be vertically, but the blade is always pointed in the same direction. If pre-setting dessert forks and spoons, there is a trick to where they're placed. Now, they're typically placed at the top part of the table setting, and same rule applies. Forks on the left, spoons on the right. You go up and then to the center, and this will tell you the determination of which direction they are pointed. So the fork prongs are pointed to the right, and the spoon is pointed to the left. Now, it doesn't matter which is on top. If it's the spoon or the fork, that does not matter. What matters is the direction that they're pointing. It can be a dessert that only needs the fork, or it can be a dessert that only requires the spoon. Or you can do like most of us and just serve the appropriate utensil when serving the dessert. Another option is using a knife rest. It also could be a chopstick rest. This prevents the blade of the salad knife, the dinner knife, from touching the tablecloth or the placemat. So when you're placing this and clearing dishes, it is totally appropriate that you can replace that knife off of a dirty plate onto the knife rest. Now we're going to discuss napkin placement. There are several options where the napkin can be placed for a setting. It really doesn't matter whether you use a folded napkin or a napkin ring regarding where it's placed. There's center, the left side, the right side, under the utensils, and the upper left corner. I'm going to share my pros and cons for each of these locations. This is subjective, as these are my opinion, but what I feel works best on board a business jet, especially if you have a full cabin. Here's my ranking. Underneath the flatware, a flat no. This is because the client has to adjust the flatware to access the napkin, and it instantly ruins the placement setting. The upper left corner, this is okay. The client has a bit of a reach for the napkin, but it can work well for a single place setting, but only if there's nothing else being placed in this area. The right side, not bad, but also not good, as this is not a proper placement. But that being said, you're on a business jet with small tables and no space, so if it fits and works best for you, do it. Service is also right-hand dominant, so for some it may make sense to place the napkin on the right side. It's just not my preference. Center placement. This is a very popular placement location. However, this is also not my preferred placement, which may surprise you. My reasoning: the client must remove the napkin prior to you serving the meal. So this can create an awkward pause if you show up with the plate and the napkin is still sitting there. Another option is to place the napkin for the client, which means you take the staged napkin, unfold it, and present it to the client for them to place into their lap. Now, if you have a full flight, this will take a lot of time to complete, and you most likely don't have the time. The left side. This is my preferred location, as it leaves the center area clear, and the client is not required to adjust anything in order to place their napkin. The left side is a proper placement for the napkin, and humans tend to go from left to right, so it's also a natural starting point. Proper placement for glassware is in the upper right corner of the setting. However, on a business jet, the client may have their beverage in the sidewall cup holder too. So let's keep this really simple. You're on a jet with limited space. As long as the client can reach the glass or stemware, place it wherever it works best. The general service standard rule is shorter glasses are placed in front and taller glasses are placed in the back or to the side of the shorter glass, left or right, typically at a slight angle. The key is to avoid having your clients reach over a taller glass to get to the shorter glass. The key to service standards is consistency, especially if setting a 2 or 4 person place setting. Coffee mugs or cups with saucers can be placed in the upper right corner of the place setting or center right. The main focus when placing the cup or mug is that the handle is set between the 4 and 5 o'clock position facing the client. Again, service standards are right hand dominant, so this makes it easy for them to access the cup or mug handle. We have mainly focused on placement setting standards using only a single place setting as the template. In upcoming videos, we will feature using the open hand service method on board business jets. As mentioned earlier, we can only access our clients from one side in the cabin, and setting tables with or without using open hand service creates some challenges whenever setting tables for 2 or more people. Our brains automatically want to mirror the place setting that's across from the other, which is not correct, as everything is backwards. I see so many social media posts by cabin attendants with one side being totally backwards and they didn't even catch it even after posting the photo or the reel. I'll be sharing some tips on how to avoid this from happening so your place settings are always correct and, more importantly, consistent. As always, thanks for watching.